Destiny 2 has recently been updated in preparation for Forsaken. We received weapon slot changes, ammo economy changes, and overall sandbox changes. This has opened the door for a lot of things, and one thing that is always fun is finding new ways to melt bosses. We as Destiny 2 players are no stranger to boss melting. We've had EP Shotgun for most bosses, Whisper the Worm for others, and for Strange Terrain and Nokris we had the Wardcliff Coil. This has been the norm for Destiny 2 for quite some time. But leading up to this patch, we began to see talk of nerfs to some weapons such as the EP Shotty and EP Sniper being moved to the second slot and being locked to solar to prevent tractor cannon stacking. We've seen the discussion of nerfs to box breathing. Even though this didn't end up affect Whispering the Worm, we saw a lot of talk. Regardless of what's being said around the community, we knew we'd still be able to melt bosses, but we didn't know which ones. And I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't expect the weapon type we'd be able to use. And that weapon type is the 150 RPM grenade launchers. Now, to prevent another shotgun video fiasco, I'm going to show you guys two clips. One where we killed the Nightfall boss with two people in 2.73 seconds. And another where I solo that same boss with the same weapon in 4.371 seconds.
Wait for it.
So now that you've seen these clips, if you're satisfied, go out, buy yourself the permanent truth from Zavala, close the video, and go destroy some bosses with a grenade launcher. But if you want to know why this happens and how this compares to some of our favorite boss melting weapons such as the Whisper the Worm or weapons that are up in the air at the moment such as the EP Shotgun, stick around. Before we dive into any of that, so everyone is on the same page, all the damage was calculated using the damage value shown when you shoot the new Wanted Lost Sector Ogre boss on Titan. This was purely for consistency and ease of testing. All these numbers can be scaled and changed depending on which activity you are doing, such as the raids, strikes, or just general play. But with all that said, let's dive in. So let's first talk about the EP Shotty. The EP Shotty is 180 RPM and a base crit damage of 2,523 damage. This means that with no buffs, this weapon can do a total of 7,569 damage per second. And due to its total reserves of 21, ignoring any perks coming in Forsaken, can pump out 52,983 total damage. If we look at the same weapon with all the possible buffs and strikes, this weapon will have a maximum multiplier of 2.25 times, increasing its burst DPS to 17,030.25 damage per second, and a total damage output gets increased based on reserves to 119,211.75 total damage. Now if we move forward and look at the EP Shotty with Trench Barrel active, it has its 2,523 base crit increased to 3,783 damage. This increases its burst DPS without external buffs to 11,349 damage per second, and its total damage output to 79,443. And if we look at it with the same 2.25x multiplier, this increases its burst DPS to 25,535.25 damage per second, and its total damage output to 178,746.75 total damage. Now, one thing I also wanted to mention about the EP Shotgun is that it can be buffed by the Tractor Cannon when solo due to the change that came with patch 2.0.0, which increases the damage by 33% regardless of the element, which in turn increases its maximum burst DPS outside of strikes from 11,349 damage per second to 15,094.17 damage per second, and it increases its total damage output from 79,443 damage to 105,659.19 damage. Next on the list is the Whisper the Worm, both with and without the catalyst, but first without. Without the catalyst, the Whisper the Worm does 6,729 damage per headshot to the Wanted Ogre boss. This means, due to its 72 RPM, it can do 8,074.8 damage per second. And like the EP Shotgun, looking at the reserves, which is 20 for the Whisper, it can do a total damage output of 134,580 damage. Also, just to include it and to hopefully avoid the inevitable comment, yes, I'm aware that the Whisper can technically do an infinite amount of damage. but that's with perfection based on headshots, and for this video we're just going to be basing the numbers on the reserves, which as I said was 134,580 damage. And of course, let's look at these numbers with the maximum possible strike buff, which happens to be 4.5x. This increases the burst DPS from 8,074.8 damage per second to 36,336.6 damage per second, and its total output increases from 134,580 damage to 605,610 total damage. So we just looked at it without the catalyst. Let's look at the Whisper with the catalyst. Here, the base crit hit damage increases to 9,716, which increases the burst DPS to 11,659.2 damage per second, which of course also increased its total damage output to 194,320 total damage. If we then apply the strike buff, the same 4.5x multiplier, this increases the burst DPS from 11,659.2 damage per second to 52,466.4 damage per second, and its total damage output is increased from 194,320 damage to 874,440 total damage. So now that we've looked at the EP shotgun, both with and without trench barrel, and we've looked at the Whisper of the Worm, both with and without its catalyst, that leaves us one more weapon type, the 150 RPM grenade launchers, and more specifically for this video, the Permanent Truth from Zavala. The Permanent Truth, as I stated, is a 150 RPM grenade launcher, which is capable of dealing 4,291 damage with direct impacts to the wanted lost sector ogre. This means it has a burst DPS of 10,727.5 damage per second without any buffs, but where this weapon lacks is in the reserves, which it only has 11, making this weapon only able to dish out 47,201 total damage, but we'll discuss this more in a second. So let's keep going. With buffs, however, this weapon does pretty well, increasing its burst DPS from 10,727.5 to 48,273.75 damage per second, and its total output is increased from 42,201 to 212,404.5 total damage. So we have all the numbers. You've seen the two clips, the 4.371 second solo Nightfall kill and the 2.736 second two-person kill. But what's the point of this video other than to show you can melt a boss with a grenade launcher now? And to be honest, there isn't much else that I really wanted to show you, but there is a few things I wanted to tell you. But to do so, we need to look at a few things. First, let's look at the total damage output for all these weapons without any buffs based on the reserves. We have the Whisper with the catalyst at the top with 194,320 damage. The Whisper without the catalyst is in second with 134,580 damage. In third, as you guessed, is the Trench Barrel EP Shotty with 79,443 damage. In fourth, we of course have the EP Shotgun without Trench Barrel at 52,983 damage. And of course, that leaves in last place the 150 RPM grenade launcher, the Permanent Truth, at 47,201 total damage. Now, if we look at these same numbers with the maximum strike buff, the numbers and order shift to look like this. But it's kind of obvious that this was going to happen. The grenade launcher gets heavyweight, the EP shotgun doesn't. So this really isn't meta changing, at least from this data. But let's look at burst DPS, which in my opinion is more important in the world of Destiny, where things switch up a little bit. First, without buffs. In first place, to no surprise, once again, is the Whisper of the Worm with the catalyst, with a burst DPS of 11,659.2 damage per second. In second, again, no surprise, is the Trench Barrel EP Shotty at 11,349 damage per second. But in third is the 150 RPM grenade launcher at 10,727.5 DPS, which means in fourth is the Whisper without the catalyst at 8,074.8 damage per second, and in last is the EP shotgun without Trench Barrel at 7,569 damage per second. Now, one thing that I want to point out about these numbers is the difference between the top three is only 8%. The difference between the Whisper with the catalyst that requires perfect headshots and a grenade launcher that you can mindlessly spam is only 8%. And this remains true when we look at the numbers with the maximum strike buffs. Only difference is the grenade launcher is now in second, again with only an 8% difference in DPS, with that 8% extra damage from the Whisper requiring perfect headshots and the grenade launcher requiring you to shoot at a giant boss semi-accurately. So simply put, and to no surprise, the Whisper is still the best with the catalyst, but a grenade launcher, well, it keeps up now, and pretty easily at that. I guess if there was anything I wanted you to take from this video, I want you to try out the grenade launchers. Try out new things. There are new things that are able to just melt bosses. Go out there, slap on a grenade launcher, go melt some bosses with a weapon type that up until the 28th of August, just a few days ago, we didn't even think twice about when it came to PvE. I'm certain there's other things out there. I'm certain there's other crazy weapons that we just haven't thought of that can keep up now. Or maybe not. Maybe it's just grenade launchers are just good at burst DPS now, and that's what Bungie wanted. Guys, this is just the beginning of the crazy nonsense coming to Destiny with Forsaken, and I'm certainly excited for it. And I honestly can't wait to try out some of the new perks and new builds and mess with the new mods and find out how things work, because the fact that we can use a grenade launcher to kill a boss 2 seconds is absurd to me, especially as a day one Destiny 2 player. That just kind of blows my mind. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button, and if you happen to be new here, be sure to subscribe, because we're going to be doing more stuff like this in the days to come, especially once Forsaken's out. Also, if you want to join my Discord, follow me on Twitter. Those links can be found in the description. And as always, thank you guys for your continued support. But for now, I think that's all I got for you guys today. So I'm going to get out of here, say my name is Matt, and I'll see you guys next time.